Good morning, everyone. Let's start with our daily market commentary. So, what we see over here on Nifty, it is again a range bound session. On the lower side, 10,700 still remains on the lower side where it has not been hit, and on the upside, again that 10,830 mark is still intact. Right now, going into the expiry for last 2 days, which are left. Let's see whether the upside or the downside has been taken out or not. But more or less, the important point to understand, the Nifty move will basically depend more on Bank Nifty. But two levels which we always keep now eyes for the July expiry is 10,700 on the lower side and 10,832 on the higher side. So a conclusive trend can only come if the breakout happens either of the sides, but more predominantly only after 10,830 for the up move. So keeping that in mind for Nifty, being a range bound session, nothing great has happened. And if we go down and even see Bank Nifty, so Bank Nifty also is showing similar kind of trend, right? So a kind of triangle formation on the weekly format which we saw yesterday. So we just try to reiterate. So on the smaller horizon, we can just see a small triangle formation which is taking place on Bank Nifty. The more important of this triangle formation is it basically relates into consolidation mode, but we need to keep an eye whether it can go with a breakout of upside or downside. So on the weekly format, things are pretty much clear that things are in the range bound session, but the most important to understand is whether it will take a breakout on the upside or the downside. So the triangle is basically on the weekly side, which is not a good sign, because if for longer duration the triangle gets formed, that too in the weekly, so for a month it was in a range, that will basically take a good breakout in the coming month or so. And since we have a result month, so ideally the breakout would be more on the upside because of the earning results coming through. So that's one good sign that if the breakout happens on the upside, there will be a one-way upside which will be there on Bank Nifty, at least for 1200 points for July month. Now what we see over here, if the upside takes place, the most important hurdle will be all-time high. The previous all-time high was roughly around 27,400. So that has to be taken out. So that will be the first resistance, and then it will cross that particular mark. So keeping that in mind, Bank Nifty also seems to be in the range bound mode. Going out and seeing on the daily side, things again remains the same. So what we see on the weekly is same, which is happening on the daily as well. It's again in the range bound session. So if you can see last 2 weeks, it's nothing conclusive up or down has taken place on Bank Nifty. So after this fall, which we had seen, there is no big change which is there in Bank Nifty, right? So apart from that, let's go and take some stocks, whether to see whether Bank Nifty is showing on the upside or the downside. So HDFCBANK, one of the heavyweights, and ICICI Bank. So HDFCBANK, what we see, has basically taken a good upside move. Now there is a clear-cut upside room for HDFC Bank going towards 2150 for this expiry. So that will provide one support to Bank Nifty, which is pretty much clear. So what we see, this was the complete Moribazu, almost remained at the same base, and then it went down, and then again it started climbing higher. So the room is pretty much open for HDFC Bank, even for intraday basis, towards 2150, and it's a clean upside which is quite possible on HDFC Bank. So if HDFC Bank is not showing any downside, so Bank Nifty at least will perform. If it doesn't perform on the upside, it might not go down anymore. Going down to ICICI Bank, so what I see on ICICI Bank, is it showing the same trend or not? So it's exactly opposite. So what I see on ICICI Bank from last 3 days, after the up move and the more good news coming into place, what has happened from the higher side, this has now become its major resistance, right? So on the upside, 300 is the major resistance. If you see right from the bottom 283, it shooted up to 300. Now it is back almost towards 283 or so. So HDFC at one end is providing some kind of support to Bank Nifty, but what I see right in the morning, it is continuously making new lows, right? So ICICI Bank is in no mode to go up. So that basically shows one pull up and one pull down, basically showing that Bank Nifty might expire. in the range bound mode. So that is one good takeaway, where we understand two heavyweights trying to push up and down in both the direction. But as we see on ICICI Bank, it is coming towards its near support. But on the downside, if you see 279, 280 is the level where multiple times it has taken support, and this also comes out with the base of the Moribazu. So you can basically get support around this 284 or so, or it can go down towards 279. So it is clear case of ICICI Bank inching down and no respite for ICICI. So even if I go and look on the hourly side, whether we can find some reversal or not, there is no reversal of any sort. So what I see, even yesterday it was trying to pull itself higher. For last 6 candles or 7 candles on the hourly side, it opens today again gap down and takes away all these gains which has happened. So this is one of the good setups that we normally talk about. So slowly and steadily it was trying to go up the entire day yesterday, and these candles or bodies were not that big enough. It almost filled the gap, was not able to open higher than this. Rather than opening up, it opened gap down. So that's a clear indication that it is no more going on the upside. And apart from that, we clearly know if these kind of candles do come, they get taken away by one big candle itself, and that is what exactly happened over here. It opened gap down, and straight away right in the morning it eats away all the candles up move which was seen yesterday, right? So the most important point, what I'm seeing on ICICI inching towards the expiry, now it basically has a good support zone. So it is inching towards the support zone where the gap up has taken place prior, and this happened to be the base of Moribazu. So you can find some support in this zone of 283 to 284 on the smaller time frame. But agenda is pretty much clear, right through selling for 1 hour can basically push him down, but majorly it cannot go beyond 280 or so. So what's happening? Bank Nifty is remaining to be in that small congestion zone is because of HDFC Bank going higher and ICICI Bank going lower. But some support can come around these zones for ICICI Bank. So even on the 5 minutes chart, if you try to see whether some reversal has been seen or not. So right in the morning it was down, came up, and then again started going down and still making new lows. So we need to see a conclusive reversal format happening on ICICI, but yet not. There is no big upside which is seen on ICICI, right? So let's look out for upside or basically reversal from the downside. If that happens, then only it can provide further support to Bank Nifty. So what's happening over here? Bank Nifty is not showing any gain in spite HDFC taking stand on the upside is because of the ICICI Bank. But later on, when HDFC moves and ICICI undergoes a reversal, it can also provide better support to Bank Nifty. Now let's go and look at the other banks. How are they performing? So if ICICI Bank is going straight on the downside, let's see Axis Bank. So Axis Bank, is it giving away the gain? Absolutely yes. So what's happening on the Axis Bank as well? There was a sharp move on the upside which was seen, and this was the base which was formed, right? And what we see over here after such a long time, this was the move which happened in the last result month, right? And it basically took away all the shorts were basically caught. Now try to understand, this was happened in basically in the April and May. So basically in the May starting zone, you see entire month it kept itself higher. It never came down to the base, right? And many people are stuck in these positions, and that is where you see the short covering which took place. Now idea is pretty much clear. Axis Bank cannot just come down towards 482 zone. So ideally it might come almost to 70% or 60% of the candle. And now I see the base which is there, which is formed around 513 is taken out. So that shows more downside for Axis Bank as well. So because if you see, this was the base of Moribazu, it started going down, and today what happens, it opens up and it basically pulls itself down. So on the intraday side for Axis Bank, even if I see the hourly chart, what exactly has happened, it's like the Moribazu getting formed, but it was more of gap up bearish. Please understand, more of gap up bearish, that basically shows more sign of bearishness. So it opened up and it basically went down in the first hour itself. So that basically shows Axis Bank is also on the tight node on downside. So it's only HDFC trying to pull up, but Axis Bank also trying to take it on the downside. Now what I see over here, multiple supports were taken, and this was the last time when multiple support took place around 511. So on the intraday side, if Axis Bank take some reversal around 511. If it doesn't crosses 511, it can become a good shorting opportunity, right? So, but if it crosses 511 and trying to support remain on the higher side, then you can see on the upside which is taking place. But Axis and ICICI are two banks which are trying to pull itself down the entire bank nifty. Now talking about the other stocks, so let's say if you take the banks like YESBANK. So YESBANK, if you see from the top, it has corrected. But what we see over here, the base of the Moribazu where this was formed was almost intact. So 328 was not taken out. The more importantly, it has been tested many times and now it is almost going in that small concession zone. Now even on YESBANK, what's happening? Try to understand for last 1 week or last 1.5 week, it has not crossed the upper point called as 337 or so. So it has been a continuous dampener for YESBANK, these levels called as 337, right? So if this crosses out, even on the intraday session or maybe on the longer time horizon, there is a clear-cut chance of AXISBANK going towards, or YESBANK going towards 352. So that might happen in the month of July. So keep an eye on this important mark, 338 for YESBANK, and let him come down. And if you can even find reversal on the downside, so even reversal on the downside, that means roughly around 328 is very, very important, right? So this is the base where multiple supports have been taking place. It might come down and then it might take a good stride on the upside. So buying around 330, the target can be for 350, a straight arrow for the month of July. But agenda is pretty much clear. Right now it is in the consolidated zone, not crossing above 338. So Axis and ICICI pulling it down, HDFC going up. YESBANK does not give any signal. So then you have the two banks, Kotak and IndusInd Bank, almost at 52-week highs. Now again, what we see on Kotak Bank, after going down, again strides to go up, again goes down, again strides to go up. So Kotak Bank basically has inherent buying taking place, right? So it is not a good trade to basically take Kotak Bank on the higher side, but agenda is now pretty much clear. If you look on Kotak Bank, it's on the upside, and but if you get a good trade on Kotak Bank on the downside. So what I see on the weekly charts, what has happened? Kotak Bank, after moving out from this consolidated zone, so this was the last consolidated zone, and then it zoomed up one way. So after such a rally, it might now rest for some time in this particular zone. The major upside for Kotak Bank is 1345, right? So that is the weekly format which we are trying to understand. So it is pretty much clear it cannot be that easy for him to again give you this kind of ride for next month or so. But yes, if it comes down, it becomes a buy on dip opportunity for next month. But currently it is also almost towards its high and trying to make new high on the higher side. So Kotak Bank is trying to provide some support to Bank Nifty, and even IndusInd Bank, the case is same. Even in the IndusInd Bank case, what has happened, it's been basically providing support on the upside, and when what we see, IndusInd Bank has been also striding on the higher note. So IndusInd Bank is also greatly placed. So if we just take a small trend line as well, what has been shown over here, it does not meet back to the trend line. So here it was trying to meet all the time. So here there is an inherent buying which is taking place for IndusInd Bank. So here there is a sharp up move which has happened on IndusInd Bank for the upside. But the agenda is again pretty much clear. You cannot basically go out and buy these stocks at 52-week high. But it is very clear that yes, the trajectory has now changed or shifted and it is almost at its high, right? So it can be a good buy, but do not just be in hurry just to buy these stocks. Let them correct to some reasonable levels. So from the higher level, if you get 3% correction before the result, then only you can enter, hoping that it crosses 52-week high, right? So this is already eye of the apple of all the analysts, and they try to basically say buy on these stocks. So try to be a little careful on IndusInd and Kotak. So both of them are trying to provide support to Bank Nifty. So what I now try to understand, Bank Nifty seems to be in a great shape, but what has happened over here because of Axis and ICICI, you are now seeing a small red happening on Bank Nifty. Now this red is basically because even after HDFC pulling it up, you are seeing red on Bank Nifty. So that is a clear understanding because of Axis and ICICI Bank. Now there is a good scope of HDFC going up. So basically what I am seeing over here, Bank Nifty crossing the lower levels or crossing the higher levels is pretty much difficult, right? So the consolidated zone might remain for a day, and then tomorrow you have expiry and it might be done in this particular zone itself. So on the higher side, you have roughly from the current levels 100 points up, and from the current levels 100 points down. So the butterfly strategy, what we discussed yesterday, will prove out to be the best case scenario for Bank Nifty. Right, so that's on banks. Now let's take some of the stocks. What is happening on the stock level as well. So when we see on the gainer and loser list, so right from morning we see some of the gainers where you have all the IT stocks again back in the strike, because USD INR has basically made new lifetime high, right? Not lifetime high, but it's trying to make new highs. So Tech Mahindra is straight bang on target, and then you also have TCS and Infosys participating in the same manner. But the point here is again this BP, HP, IOC, all these because of the oil fiasco is almost down, right? So this is where these guys are basically the commodity guys which are pulling down, which doesn't have a lot of weight in Nifty. So let's go and look only for the losing side. So when I look at the losers every day, what I see over here, so on the commodity side, if you're having a losing candidates, that basically shows these are not the heavyweights which are pulling it down. But on the heavyweights, if I see TCS, Infosys, one of the top heavyweights of Nifty, HUL, they are at the top making the gains. That basically shows Nifty will have a biasness on the upside. Now let's go and pull out dollar index and USD INR and try to understand this IT story. So if you look out at the DXY or the dollar index, what I see over here, dollar index on the daily level has basically taken a good upside, and now it basically went in the sideways zone. But if I go and look on the weekly format, because smaller time frames will not happen or will not allow us for a clear understanding. So what's happening on the dollar side, this was the high which was made prior. This was the second high, and then the fall happened. Almost it consolidated in the triangle formation. It zoomed up and it basically reached to the same high for the first time. Second time it again comes back to the same high, and the third time it tries to cross back and it comes down. So it might be that DXY or the dollar index might consolidate in this zone before it starts a new trajectory almost towards 97, 98. So there is a big upside on the dollar, which is not good for India, but the point is pretty much clear. It will be good for the IT companies. Provided that dollar goes up, then what happens in the next round of Fed meeting? Prior to that, we can assume that dollar might again gain strength, and that is where USD INR will again face some stiffness. Now when we see USD INR, okay, and when we see on the weekly side what's happening on USD INR, so what I see on weekly side, this has been the high, right? So the first high was this, second time it again almost reached, it made two spikes on the high. So 69 was the levels where it had almost reached, and now what we saw, a great downside which happened. Of lately, what we saw again, a big stride on the upside, and that was clearly visible because of the DXY. Now, even after a great stride on the upside, try to understand. So this was the great stride which happened right from 65. It zoomed almost to 68. The most important point to understand here, it took some respite, came back down. Now it is back almost to the same high. So it might cross high over here, inching towards 69 or so, but it cannot just pass and become 72, 73. It might come back down, and it will all depend on DXY, whether that is gaining strength or not in coming months or so, right? So keep an eye on DXY if you want to understand USD INR. Now, I won't be interested to buy USD INR since all are bullish on the upside. I am being bearish, but I need to understand when should I be bearish. So this is a great point to be bearish, because here the resistance will come into play. But on the higher side also, you need to understand whether resistance will come or not. So then we go inside and understand the daily format. If we get any candle patterns on the higher side, right, then we are interested to look for the sell opportunity. So if I go out and just understand some of the sell opportunity, so this was making new highs every day. If you see, there was not a single setup where you can basically go and sell. But what happened over here, a green candle followed by red candle basically took place. After this red candle, I am more interested whether the candle is getting formed below this or above this. So what happened over here, it started making candles which were above the base, right? So this clearly shows there is no mood of going for the downside. Then it started going up. The most important point over here, the gain which happened was again what? A small body move, not a conducive move with high strength. So what happened then? Going out almost to the high, you saw one candle which took away all the gains, right? Same what we saw in ICICI Bank right now. So these kind of setups do play out, and this is most important after the Moribazu. What is happening? There is more chances of downside rather than upside. And then you basically saw a little downside which happened, and then it also pulled itself higher. But then the point comes, it starts going down. The again agenda is pretty much clear. When we see over here, there was a pull up and then there was a pull down, right? And then you see another candle going straight down of 50 cents or so. So the agenda is pretty much clear. When we see these kind of setups, then only you can pull your trade. So what's happening now, when it see this going down and then it basically takes a reverse on the upside where it was supposed to go down, that resistance now becomes support. So for multiple days, it basically rested on this support line, right, which acted first as resistance, now as support. So before the big up move, try to understand, before the big up move, 1, 2, 3, 4 days, it was trying to maintain the same level. So when there were 4 days trying to maintain the same level, and then you saw a big up move coming almost to the same levels. Now when we see a sell opportunity is what we are trying to look at, there is no candle pattern which we have formed yet, right? So look for doji, look for evening star, or look for any kind of engulfing pattern, but nothing has been seen as of yet. So we cannot just go out and sell just because it is at the high, and try to understand this is the multiple times he has tested the high, right? So that the more chances are there, it might spike up on the higher side. But important is to understand if we get any of the patterns on the higher side, so you can keep looking at the daily chart of USD INR and go for a sell opportunity, right? So this is almost expiry which will be done. So you have a new expiry to play with. So you can also play with options on the put side, right? So keep that in mind and try to figure out whether you get the sell opportunity in USD INR. But being USD INR strong almost to the high, obviously it will provide support to the IT stocks. The best stock which I think has good potential for the upside, it's TCS, but it's already moved. So I'm basically pulling out Tech Mahindra. Now what I see on Tech Mahindra, even on the weekly chart, something which is very, very clear on Tech Mahindra, it's again consolidating on the higher levels, right? So on the upper side and on the lower side, it's like a triangle formation on the weekly chart, the way we saw for Bank Nifty. But what I see over here, even in this triangle formation, it undergoes a lot of consolidation which is taking place, right? So if consolidation is taking place on the higher side, one thing is pretty much clear, it might take a good breakout, right? So we are looking out for a good breakout even for Tech Mahindra, but the agenda is clear, it is consolidating on the higher side. So keep that in mind, consolidation breakout can take place. So other point to see on the daily side, to understand what levels are possible for Tech Mahindra, when we see every time whenever it has corrected. So this is the point where the rally happened, again it corrected, almost spiked down to the same level. So these are the level of good support I can say for Tech Mahindra for buying opportunities, right? So if you look at the lower side, it is around 650 or so, or 660 or so. But the most important point to understand whether it will come or not, right? Because now it is almost at the higher levels, it comes back down, and then again it made a double bottom kind of stuff and again zoomed up. So ideally getting it at 660 is a distinct opportunity. But if you get before the result, it is an amazing buy opportunity for Tech Mahindra. Keeping again in mind, should we go out and buy at the higher levels? It does not make sense, right? So as I said, USD INR might take some respite. Once the expiry is out, the next month it might come down for the first week, and you might find Tech Mahindra also losing the mojo. So let him come down in this range of 660, 670. Let him form a good formation over there on the lower side and buy in the month of July. For sure, 720 or higher targets can be achieved, right? So just do not run in the bus. So wait for the correct time to go into it before it corrects and comes down at a suitable levels. So at least 660 to 680 is the range where it should come down, and you can basically get a good opportunity on intraday basis where you can convert it into positional as well. Right? Thank you for joining in. We'll connect again tomorrow.